So we're on the second last of the 8 great dangers that Tara is going to liberate us from if we make ourselves available to her. And this is one that's written just for me and for you. Sweeping us in the torrent of cyclic existence so hard to cross, we're conditioned by the propelling winds of karma. We are tossed in the waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The flood of attachment, please protect us from this danger. So this is a very sneaky one, because I, and maybe you, mistake this kind of thinking for happiness. And this is what I grasp at day and night. It is something I have perfected in this life, and now I'm trying to unperfect it. And it's very good that the imagery that's given with this is so obvious. I mean, now, sadly, in the world, we're seeing more and more examples of flooding in the world. We see what those images are. We see the destruction, the incredible devastation that floods bring to the landscape, to people's homes, to people's lives. And then when the floods waters subside, then there's just this complete huge mess that's left. And this is exactly what attachment brings. But it's really sneaky, because attachment fools the mind into making us think it's very virtuous and it's love and it's all of these other things, and it's not even that at all. But I go for that hook like crazy. So, attachment resembles a flood. We are powerlessly swept along by its current. When our mind is attached to something, it has no space for anything else. We are obsessed with the object of our attachment. We worry about not getting it, and we fear losing it once we do get it. Drowning in the flood of attachment, we cannot breathe the fresh air of satisfaction and peace. Well, that whole description of attachment sounds like getting a crush on someone and falling in love. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is what my experience was. And for sure, in relationships, there's love, for sure. And in our human experience, there's also a lot of attachment that we have to sort of pick out and find and get rid of. So Venerable Chodron writes in How to Free Your Mind this: like a flood, attachment sweeps over us, propelling us helplessly in the stormy ocean of existence. Under this influence of attachment, we cling to persons, objects, our reputation, our status, jobs, places, ideas, views. We act in harmful ways to get what we want. So if you think of some relationships that you've had in the past, maybe your present one, what have you done to get that relationship? Has it been only virtue, or has there been some non-virtue involved too in getting that? So these destructive actions create conflict with others, leaves imprints on our mind stream, and for sure those imprints will ripen and it'll bring us suffering down the line. The second thing about attachment is that at the time of death, if we're still stuck in this attachment mind, then we cling to our body and life like crazy. And when we see that we can't hang on to either one of those, because this must happen in the last moments, then we grasp after another body and mind, and then we're reborn in cyclic existence, and it all starts all over again. So not only are we fighting attachment in this scenario, we're fighting our craving and afflictions, and we're confined by our karma, by our past actions. So I thought I would not talk about grasping onto a relationship, because that gets pretty complicated. You can do your own homework there with yours. But I thought I'd share one that's a little bit easier for me to tell and for you to hear. When I was living in Edmonton, I was working a very dumb job, just getting minimum wage, and I was training to be a mime artist. So I had this minimum wage job in a very cool little restaurant right on the university campus. And right next door to this food store, it was actually a gourmet food store, was this record store, and it was called Sub Records. And it was the place that everyone in Edmonton went to get their records. And because I was also very interested in music, I was just longing every paycheck to get a new record. And I would see all of these professional people go up this ramp to the record store. They'd be in there for a while. And then I'd see them come down with their big stack of records, depending on their income. And I was just looking at them in such a, like, oh, I can hardly wait until I grow up, and I too can go up that ramp and come down with these records that'll bring me ultimate happiness. And so every now and then I'd have enough money for a record. I'd go up the ramp, and this was a fantastic record store. There were endless choices. And so the minute I got in there, it was instant suffering. I didn't know which one to pick. I mean, which one was going to give me the best happiness? Which one would make my friends happy? So I'd pick the one that maybe sometimes I knew about, I'd read about, or had the coolest jacket cover, you know. Then I'd get it home, I'd be just sort of clutching it to my chest, walking as fast as I could to my home. I'd get it on this record player, and I'd put it on, and it was like, oh. Really? That's what I've been working so hard for? But that was my favorite song. What happened? Well, maybe there's some other track on here. Well, the other tracks are far worse, right? They're just like losers, and there's that one good track on the record, which is still, and it was this huge, profound disappointment. But at that time, I didn't know anything about the Dharma, so I thought, I just picked the wrong record. I have to go back next paycheck and get a different record. That'll bring me happiness. So later on, I had a real job, and I had more money, and I could go in to Sub Records and maybe pick up 2 or 3. Now it's CDs, right? Every time it was the same thing. You'd get the new, you'd get this little case, you'd rip open the thing, put it in the CD player, waiting for that bliss to happen. It was like, again, oh, gee, it's not happening. What is wrong here? I just need more CDs. And then I thought, well, with my next wage increase, I need a better sound system. I absolutely need a really good sound system. I know this person, he's a friend of ours, he's an audiophile. His sound system is $30,000. I can't afford that, but I'm going to get what I can afford. So I get the new sound system. And it's the same thing, this mind that's absolutely grasping and clinging, thinking that what's out there, sound-wise, is going to bring, a break from suffering and this ultimate bliss of happiness of listening to beautiful music. Now, every now and then, I have to admit, it did happen. There would be moments where I'd be elevated out of the state I was in. For sure it happened, and music can do that. It can do it. And it's temporary. I'm really sad to say it's temporary. It's like putting the pause button on suffering. And then we're just, boom, the song's over and we're back in it. So this is one thing that attachment does. And then look at all the time I wasted, working at a stupid job, spending money on stuff that isn't going to bring me happiness. I could have donated that money to charity. I could have spent my time learning a spiritual practice. And what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels looking for the next best recording. What a sad story that is. But fortunately, that's in the past, I think. So anyway, Venerable Chodron gives us some antidotes to work with when this mind, if you can catch it, arises. And one thing she says, first of all, to do is on the cushion, start looking for patterns in this attachment. Look for patterns, like when you're in a miserable situation. Is attachment going on? Probably it is. And start writing down these patterns. And then she says, the first 2 of the 3 characteristics are the antidotes that we want to target. And the first one is impermanence. So if it's a relationship, situation, or whatever it is, just look at how moment by moment it's all changing. Moment by moment. When you first fall in love with someone, we know the story. They are magnificent. Months down the road, years down the road, what the heck happened here? Where did that person go? Like, huh? Why did that happen? So, we're forgetting that things change, our minds change, the person's mind is changing. And so putting our, reaching out for the externals for happiness is a guaranteed catastrophe. So impermanence is one thing to sit with. Then the second thing is just looking at the dukkha of everything. the unsatisfactoriness of everything. And so that too will bring some sobering disappointment. And at first you may feel disappointed and let down and cheated and all of that, but just to see that we're putting our faith in something that can't possibly work for us. It can't possibly. So in Venerable Children's words, contemplate impermanence. Remember that whatever you're clinging to is not going to last long. It's going to decay, so there's no use clinging to it. Contemplate the second characteristic, dukkha. All of these things lack the ability to bring us ultimate happiness. So, in looking at all of this, I see my tendencies. I see that these antidotes are very effective, and yet I see too that I still grasp and cling. And when you see that happening, you have to be very patient with yourself too, and not get totally discouraged and think, this is hopeless, it's just endless. Well, actually the truth is our attachments are seemingly endless, but if we start noticing our patterns, I'm convinced that this will allow us to erode that tendency of grasping. So I found a totally inspiring story yesterday. It goes along with Venerable Chuni's talk the other day with the chains of miserliness, but also targets this. And for this time of year too, like we're just a few days away from Christmas, this is just totally inspiring. This is a story from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And last week, there's a fellow by the name of Tom Christ who came forward simply because he had to. He won $40 million in the lottery. He won this prize in May. It is the largest win in Canada for any single person. I know in the United States and maybe other places you have far larger lotteries, but in Canada this was like the biggest win for a person. He was on a golf course in May when he got the call from Lotto Canada that he had won this, because he didn't even check his numbers. And then he did nothing. He was wanting to just be under the cover and not even go and claim the prize. So I'm going to tell you why he was thinking this way. I'm going to read the story for you. It's just wonderful. He was golfing in Palm Springs when his phone rang. As soon as he hung up from his cell phone call from Western Canada Lottery, he just thought, well, I'm going to keep this a secret. I'm not even going to tell my kids. And maybe this story will just go away. He said, I don't even really need that money. Tom Christ said as soon as he got the call, he knew where the money was going to go. They sort of said to him, well, you have to accept this money. You're the winner. We have to put your picture in the paper. We have to make this public. Otherwise, people will think that the funds have been, something funny has happened. And so he says, I lost my wife to cancer 2 years ago. So he decided that since his wife was fairly young when she died, she was about 57, and since he felt that he did not need this money, he was going to donate every single penny of the $40 million to charity. Now, someone who started off, I'm sure many years ago, Tom Christ probably had some attachment to money, but he was the owner of this incredibly successful electrical company for many decades, and he really did well. So he's not hurting for money, but $40 million, you can just imagine the ordinary mind, my mind, thinking of, wow, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, and all the things I could get, and I can give that to my kids. And he decided that it's all going to go to charity. He said, I've been fortunate enough throughout my 44-year career that I did very well for myself. I've done enough that I can look after my kids and myself very well. I don't need that money. Chris said his children are totally behind his plans, which is also remarkable. You might think the kids want, a few million. Come on, Dad, let's keep a few million, and then we'll give a few million away. But no, they're giving the whole thing away. Let's see. So that's the end for this story. I read today in another story that already is starting to give money to the Tom Baker Center in Calgary, which is a cancer treatment center. And so he's getting his kids involved in making these decisions about where the money is going to go. And I think that this time of year, a few days from Christmas, it's just heartwarming, that story. Totally heartwarming. So whatever this person is doing, Tom Christ, I mean, you can probably read between the lines, obviously, with this story. He's probably, many times a millionaire. His wife passes away. You get to see what's important in life. And it certainly isn't having money. So, Kuni, could I ask you to give me that book? I'm just going to close with one last paragraph from Venerable Children about these 8 dangers and about how Tara is interacting with us. And this is from How to Free Your Mind, Venerable Thupten Children. So she says this. One of the purposes of reciting these and similar verses is to open our minds and hearts, making ourselves receptive spiritual vessels. Although we seem to be praying to Tara, we are actually invoking our internal wisdom and compassion through generating wonderful aspirations and directing our thought toward virtuous aims. The more we open our hearts with love and compassion to all beings equally, the more Tara can influence us. The greater our wisdom, understanding the ultimate nature, the more Tara can inspire us to deepen our realizations. So let's continue with our practice and open our minds and hearts to Tara.